This is another student model for generic analysis on the 15 news sites, online news sites. I want to look at the general description of the news sites, the depth characteristic, and then an explanation. Now, one thing I want to point out is that the student barely had enough material here. Could have developed a little bit longer, but it was sufficient, and it was a little bit more, but I would like it to be developed a good bit beyond my minimum length requirements. But the actual insights that the student had, especially the second and third paragraphs, were enough to really make this a good A. A good A, like around a 3.8. Let's take a look. Of the 3 paragraphs here, the first one about the summary of the sites in general, the basic characteristics needs more development. When I think of news, I don't think of one particular channel or news site. They all sort of blur together in my mind. Maybe this is because they all share many similarities. One similarity is that most news sites have some kind of tie-in with the social media, like Twitter and Facebook. You can connect the two together for a hybrid experience. Another similarity is that all of these websites appear to be very neutral on the election. You know what? It would be better to say the similarity is they stay neutral on politics, because the election is a transient thing. It's not a general characteristic to these sites. It comes and goes every 4 years, every 2 years. So you need to talk about maybe the neutral stance to politics. That would stay more as a general characteristic. Okay, one other similarity is that they all have one logo that is known by everyone. Okay, but now what about the colors used? What about the background? What about the types of stories? What about the advertising? That sort of thing. That needs to be more of there needs to be more present, more of a factor in this characteristic, typical news site that you're trying to describe, because they all have websites, advertisements. I mean, almost all. Okay, now one similarity that is very much less obvious is the original source of the stories. That was overlooked by me until I asked for this assignment to find something not as obvious. Okay, on Google, Yahoo. Okay, right here, I'm actually getting a list of sites. That's great. I wanted to see that in your work. I wanted you to say, hey, look, in these 5 sites, boom, 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 or these 4 sites, or these 6 sites, and give me the names. All right, some of the stories aren't from the actual website. When you click on the links to read more, it takes you to a totally different website. Sometimes another news website and sometimes not. This was a shock to me. I wondered how they were allowed to use some other websites' work. Okay, let's get the apostrophe in there. And put it on their page without making the source really well known. Who gives the consent? Okay, excellent observation. Now, why did they do this, right? Because this is a characteristic for some of them. And I get a pretty decent explanation. I think this happens so the news sites can protect themselves, so the story isn't controversial. They can backpedal and say they didn't write it. They aren't responsible for it. Another reason is that it could be the websites want to be considered news websites, but they don't have enough of their own work to back it up. If the company has enough money, they can pay. Okay, all of this is very good. Okay, you can pause this video and read this on your own if you wish. But this is really what I was looking for. There are 2 things that could have made this essay better. Each one of these sections should have been slightly longer, and then up here, I needed a better description of the average typical news site. But because of the excellent job done right here, which was the harder part, this was the harder part of the 2 parts here. Well, of the 3 parts, this was the hardest. This was the second hardest. This would have been the easiest. The job done on these 2 parts really bring this up to like a 3.7 or a 3.8. So that's an A on the GPA scale. Now, again, what I want you to do with these models is look at what was done here and then look at your own work. Did you meet the basic requirements for length? Did you stay on track with what I was asking you to do? Did you keep your nose to the grindstone concerning the requirements of the assignment? In other words, you didn't kind of substitute an easier task by doing something else. And did you really try to move from the very general to the in-depth and then a good explanation of it? See how yours compares. This is about a 3.8. Let's see if this allows you to understand how yours was scored.